Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode. Sorry, guys, I'm just outside right now seeing something in the distance, wondering if it's suspicious or not. Okay, guys. All right, the title is The Efficiency That Ran Towards You. And so I had the analogy of an eagle constantly in my mind when thinking about this talk. And how an eagle from the branch has a different view on the moment, therefore suggesting a different efficiency or inefficiency, and the eagle has a view from the sky. And so human beings are not birds. We can't fly into the sky, but we have an inner sky we can fly into. And that is the ability of us to observe before we act, to kind of look at how things are happening before our mind starts storifying everything it sees. I've kind of come to terms with language in the sense that I've had this constant love and hate relationship with it, where when the language doesn't uh, enable my reality, then it's automatically like inefficient. You know, there's this story. There was this man and this farmer, this old farmer, and one of his four horses runs away. And the villagers, people in the village, come up to him and they're like, "Hey, man, you're pretty unlucky. You know, your horse ran away." And the guy shouts and says, "How do you know I'm unlucky? You know, how do you know it's inefficient? You know?" The guy says, "Maybe, I don't know." The next day or like a week later or something, the horse comes back with three other wild horses. Everybody in the village comes to the old man, to the farmer, and says, "Hey, man, you're very lucky. Look at what you got." And then the old man says, what's the old man say? The old man says, "Why do you people keep coming to my house?" the, old, the old man says, "How do you know it's unlucky? How do you know it's lucky?" You know, the old man keeps saying, "Maybe, maybe," kind of walking the middle way. The next day, his son gets on one of the horses and falls down and breaks his leg. And people come up to him and say, "You're unlucky." But the day after, I don't know, like the military people come and they can't recruit the son because his legs is broken. They recruit everybody else's son for work. So it becomes a situation where they constantly keep telling this guy, "You're lucky, you're unlucky," but it's like an oscillation. You know, sometimes you're on a branch and you don't have the eagle vision. Sometimes you're in the sky and you don't know the branch of knowledge. In the Sufi tradition, they say a Sufi. Excuse me. They say a Sufi is grateful for um, what he gets and what he doesn't get. And for a long time, I was like, how can you be grateful if you got nothing? And eventually, I realized that because you are being something, you know, the human experience is one where we identify, or the story of our inner realm shifts with what's outside of us. If you can become a person that you notice your inner realms and your outer realms, and you witness it in a way where your inner realms no longer touch the outer realms are going to stop touching your inner realms. That means this question of the efficiency that ran towards you is as if there was an important acknowledgement. You know, they say you gotta see it to believe it. And what's fascinating is that we can't see who is looking through our eyes. So technically, we can't believe ourselves, you know, if we want to see it to believe it. You know, there are some questions that have answers separate from the question. And there are some questions that the answer is a new reframing of the question. And so, seeking efficiency or inefficiency, this is the modern morality from the stone age of sin, from human beings feeling guilty in accordance to narrative. That guilt is going to transform to the modern morality of waves of efficiency or inefficiency. We all speak a language, and it's called the language of being, and it's how you are being a human being right now. I feel every design gives access to a certain range of perception, and the human species right now, we're thinking that at the edge, imagine at the back of the back of the back of the back of your mind. And in the back of the back of the back of the back of everybody else's mind, what if there is a sort of inseparable field we're all moving in? In my life, efficiency only came when I feel I started living through my own eyes. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. This world is filled with information, and every day of life on this planet, it's like waves of information hitting you from where you go and from what comes to you. You know, that means pretty much from the moment the eyes open into the conscious waking state, either the self moves, the world moves through the world, or the world moves through the self. Anytime in this life I have felt defeated, or I've felt like as if I have failed, it has been as if the world overpowered how my inner realms saw the sequencing of the events of the moment. And so, for a long time, I thought, is it an analysis? Is it a calculation? Is efficiency knowing more before you go into the room? You know, and that is the case. But efficiency is not that. It's not that. I would say, it's not just that. It's kind of like how Sun Tzu in The Art of War said, regardless of how much of an incredible general you are on a battlefield, the general that wins is aware of the balance between heaven and earth. What does that mean? That means many people could see how there's an individual, and that individual is animate, and consider that that individual they're seeing is a vehicle, and something else is moving that. You know, it's as if like the idea of you, was it ever physical? Isn't it fascinating? We are embodied creatures, yet the idea of yourself, is that physical? Is that a physical phenomenon? So isn't it incredible that in a world of objective meaning, in a world of objective phenomena, the meaning is non-physically kept? So stories were never meant for atomic hands, you know. This is why I feel René Descartes eventually concluded that after doubting everything, the only thing that is left is the isolated thinking subject, you know? And this isolated thinking subject is the questioner. So the grandest mystery of this life is not per se just behaving in a certain way and thinking that's the reality. It is becoming aware of the life of the world before your eyes touch its shape, its definition. There's a story that, in kind of my attempt of giving these talks, it kind of emerged out of one of the talks where I kind of set this story where, what do you call it? There was this mystic, sorry, there was this king, and he had sons. He had like there were princes in line, and the oldest son, the oldest prince, went down to where the palace guard at the front of the kingdom was, but with regular casual clothing. And on his way to go see his kind of palace guard buddy who played, let's say they played sports as a kid. Now one of them's a prince, the other is a palace guard. So the prince goes and still talks to his friend. And so as this prince is going, a beggar runs up to the prince before the prince goes to his palace guard, to his palace guard friend early in the morning. A beggar runs up to the prince and says, "Please give me something, give me something," something like that. In more of a medieval peasant tone. The beggar asks the person who he doesn't even know is a prince. He asks him for something, and the prince shouts and says, "You don't know the value of what you ask. You know, I won't give it to you because you haven't even given it to yourself." And the prince walks, and the beggar is shocked. You know, he never thought that value has to start from within. He thought value has to start from outside, or has to be given outside, or a savior has to pat you on the back for you to realize that you got to save yourself. The man goes, the prince, he goes with his friend. That incident finishes. He goes in the early morning. They're having tea by the palace, and something strange happens. There's a man walking towards the gate, and the palace guard friend immediately notices this and immediately goes on his guard. You know, who is walking towards the palace entrance where the guard and the prince is a mystic, is this yogic-minded being who's been intuitively kind of by the whispers of the logos guided towards coming to the palace gate. And he comes there, and the guard raises his weapon just in alarm, like, who's this man approaching the gate? And so does he know this is the prince? And the prince is standing there in casual clothing as if he's not a prince. And this yogi, back in the day, he comes up and he says, and he suddenly shouts as if he already knows what the moment knows. And he says, "Prince." He grabs the attention of the prince and he says, "I have come here to save you." And the prince and the palace guard start laughing. I mean, they are shocked how the guy knows that's the prince, but they start laughing. And the prince walks up with the might of a king. With the might of a prince. Sorry, sorry guys, my attention's getting a bit distracted. Anyways, guys, sorry. Let me continue the story. The thing is, I don't have glasses right now. I don't have my glasses right now, and I can't tell what's happening in the distance second. Alright, guys, anyways, the story, but let's get back to the story. Excuse me. What happens is the prince and the guard laugh when this guy says, I'm here to save you, prince. And the prince says, you are here to save me? Do you know who I am? Do you know I'm in line to being the most powerful man in the nation? You know? And that's where the yogi says these words, and this is why I'm sharing this story with you. The yogi looks at this king, this future king. And guys, I don't know if people know this, but so many sages in history have scolded emperors. It's kind of hilarious. You know, it's like, I think they were the only ones allowed by nature's will to do so, you know? And so what happens is that the yogi says, I am here to save you, prince, from yourself. And there's this intense kind of supernova explosion of a silence. And so the moral of that story, that sometimes we have to save ourselves from what we think we see. There is something within this movement of life that has led to animals talking. I mean, we're talking animals right now. We're talking animals with a mysterious boost compared to every other species on this planet. And so I've had various angles. I've considered this, various theories on evolution. I've attributed them to different things. Pretty much you can say this world is like a room, and you look at what are ancient repetitive phenomena and you wonder about their influence on the being. You know, I kind of imagine that there is like a smaller, like imagine when Earth was a much, much smaller rock, and all this stuff coming to, all this stuff from, what do you call it? All the space debris or whatever unique sediments floating in space, they all came to the gravitational pull of this Earth. And you know what that means? That means this rock is filled with endless particles from different places, you know? And I think, guys, this is the case. This is that, okay, I'm just telling you, imagine, here, to kind of give, make this idea more clear, I'm saying that imagine the Earth is a snowball. Now imagine you keep adding snowballs to the snowball, and it becomes this bigger snowball. Now think as if every snowflake is like a different design of intelligence. So I feel that gravity has kind of made the potential for the advancement of human life be in the planet. What does that mean? That means the more we dig, like think as if there's a movement on the surface of the Earth where, I don't know, sedimentary levels are being pushed up. Okay, that means on when I heard that they said the center of the Earth is like burning with, you know, it's like what's the core of the Earth is. Let's see what the temperature is thought to be. Even though there's no way of knowing this, but you know, it's what is the temperature of the center of the Earth? Guys, this is one of these strips of information you only get on this podcast. I don't think there's a lot of people who care for how hot the center of the Earth is. Okay, 6,000 degrees Celsius. Scientists have determined the temperature near the Earth's center to be 6,000 degrees Celsius, 1,000 degrees hotter than a previous experiment run 20 years ago. I mean, I think it could be that, let's say 6,000 degrees Celsius, right? So it's kind of like the core of our planet is burning gas. I want to say burning gas, but it's more, I don't know what the exact term is. I just feel the heat at the core of the Earth is pushing sediments up, and after years and years of sediments forming various imagined particles from outer space, kind of through gravity coming to this rock, it's as if I could totally see how nature is designed in a way where Guys, I gotta write this down before I forget. Okay. It is too easy to think of conscious human existence as just the rare hallucination of nature. I feel that because we have become aware of uh, our own objective existence subjectively, now the next phase has been to become aware of our subjective existence objectively. But that's where it becomes void, where when you wonder about the mind, it is not an object. Jason, in the chat section, are you talking about the planet? All right, anyways. I don't know, guys. We open our eyes in a world that we have a certain range of information about. The rest of it is in the unknown, and the unknown is the darkness in the forest, and our knowledge is the flashlights in our hand. And really, the species has nothing else to do other than see what this place is and explore it. And anytime the spirit of exploration is pushed out of your inner vision, you stop living for yourself. And when you stop living for yourself, ideas come and live in your place. I don't know. I think it's always an interesting thing to study efficiency, to wonder how it breathes, how it moves, how it is alive. Does efficiency for a natural being mean immortality, or does efficiency for a natural being mean to play its part in nature? Do you know? And I think that is it. Nature is endlessly feeding itself through forms. You know, that means I find it fascinating. It's like endless levels which are all being the same moment. That's the beautiful thing, that regardless of how your experience classifies, separates things, existence is in one place. Existence has nowhere to go other than the urine. They kicked existence out of its place. You know, existence was like, where should I go? You know, and experience was like, I got this. Efficiency means creating space, or at least finding space. Anytime I've seen an inefficient action, it has been an action that didn't pursue the efficiency far enough or didn't care to look. You know, I'll give you an example. There was a moment in my life where I remember I was walking to, I think it was a gas station, grocery store somewhere, and one person went up to the door and they pulled the door and the door didn't open, and the guy came up to me and said, "Hey man, it's closed." And the guy walked away. And I said, "Okay." You know, I was like, "Okay." Then I went in and I pushed the door and the door was opened. And that guy realized that his attempt was limited. So his inefficiency was coming to a moment and not seeing the various dimensions it can move. We are so conditioned to constantly think of ourselves as a sort of superhero, super ego, you know, that it is hilarious. It is hilarious that we are aiming for perfection in a world that is imperfect in so many ways. It is hilarious that we're aiming for permanence in a world that is impermanent in so many ways. You know, it is hilarious that we're aiming for completeness in a world so incomplete. But why man? Why the story of humanity? You know, it, growing up, I've seen many films, many shows, many ways that characters have kind of engaged the world that they could see. But for how long? For how long can the sensory keep us occupied? Will we wonder about what is beyond this wall? And there is something deep about the unknown, because Friedrich Nietzsche has this quote where he says, uh, "He who stares at the abyss stares back at him," something like that. And the abyss is like the skin of the unknown. I think we will become an advanced civilization when we look at our knowledge, we're comfortable with the limitations, and when we not comfortable, let me say it, we are content with our limitations. We have no problem with our limitations, and when we look at the unknown, we have no problem with the limitless. That means really knowledge is observance, isn't it? What is education? It is watching the only world that is in front of you. There is this approach that some people are like, in whatever you do in this life, you have to let the ripples of the pond settle. So you can say efficiency between two people. Efficiency between uh, any moment. Let's try to find a universal model for efficiency. Okay, a universal kind of person-based model. So what is a person? A person is the voice of the environment plus the voice of their free will. That means as you have free will, you also have an unfree will. And the unfree will is the existential component. What does that mean? That means nobody could kind of choose their face. You know, nobody could choose their design. We're all dealt elemental hands. We're all unique branches of how DNA has marched forth. But I feel that efficiency, or any efficiency in any moment in a universe, in the conscious waking state. That means if you are a self and you're a conscious self, and whether you're in a conscious world or unconscious world, you must let the world move first. You gotta be a gentleman of your intuition. And that's letting the ripples on the pond settle. The poet Rumi has this quote. He says, "Let the waters settle, and you shall see the ripple. You shall see the reflection of the." Uh, oh God, what was the quote? Let me see if I can remember it properly. "Let the waters settle, and you shall see the moon and the stars mirrored in your own being." There we go. That's the thing. You look. You can live as a person, as a personality, which is an observable quality of how you engage the moment, or you can live as your presence, a sort of stillness, silence, uh, essence being, you know. That means, I will tell you, you master silence, and when I say master silence, doesn't mean let silence be your master, because that's when silencing becomes an enslavement. There's a type of silence that's good, and there's a type of silence that's bad. You know, for example, the type of silence that's bad is when something messed up is happening, nobody's saying anything. But a type of silence that is good is when, for example, let's say your father and your son suddenly gets incredibly rude and savage, instead of responding, because any moment you respond to anyone, you're accepting you're on their level. You're accepting you're on their level. That's the thing about communicating. You can communicate whatever, but it's like throwing a ball in the air. And if nobody catches it, the ball falls and back into silence. And so you become comfortable with silence, you attain a mastery over speech and words. Who knew? Silence makes you good at speaking. Being comfortable with silence being evoked anywhere. Because I was thinking, I was like, what is this? That my whole life, my this intelligence that I am has been comfortable with every day having various thoughts stream through my alertness, through my awareness. It's as if every day, like my eyes are like a camera, and phenomenology is passing in front of them, and the camera can also move. And so it's an acceptance that it's okay if this system, whatever this cosmological system is, it's okay if it's empty. It's okay. It doesn't mean that's the only thing it is, but it just means it's okay. When you become comfortable with your emptiness, and this was strange. It happened in my. I'm trying to give you like the the core of this inner earth that I'm walking in. It's a silence when through that silence you experientially realize you were never an ego, and you laugh and cry at the same time. You laugh at all how silly it was, of how seriously you took life as through the thought, through the lens of the archetype, and you also cry because you see how many moments passed where you could have been you. That's the thing. That's what I would advise the future generations. You don't have time to uh, learn from another. It's like your whole moment is the library. There's literally nothing else. That means imagine there wasn't a library. Imagine you were just a dwelling human being back in the day. What would you do? After walking, you would perhaps sit for a while and look at this life and wonder why. And the fact that the question why has entered the mind of man, that question is, I would say it is literally evolution in the making. That any moment I've reached a point where I've asked why, whether for myself or for my world, it's had profound implications afterwards. I don't know what it is, but the question why has a strange force behind it. It's different than the question how. The question how takes your attention to the beginning, but the question why takes you towards why the result the beginning wanted. So when we say why are we here, that question is for philosophy to answer. We can say when we say how are we here, that's a question for science. And then how do we maintain the some sort of psychological narrative to our own? Here's the thing: it's as if like I could see how the prophets of the various world religions were compassionate because they saw man was afraid of emptiness behind his eyes. And so they created stories that the ego could gently leave. Hafez says that the religions were the great ships, and the poets and the sages and whatnot were like the lifeboats. You know, it's kind of like asking yourself how much of the moment is actually here, physically. And you'll notice, shockingly, your inner realms appear as the absence of matter, but they don't appear as the absence of space, as if between space and matter there is one more station there, that you know. And so it's as if the mind is a dimension, it's an abode. And the yogis that would go in caves, I would ask myself, I'm like, why is this dude? Because in Tibetan Buddhism, there's this thing where there's these meditators that for 3 years, 3 months, and 3 days, they go and meditate in a cave. And I was like, why, bro? Why? Especially when you have an active social dimension in your mind, it makes doing nothing doesn't really make sense. But in that context of Tibetan in meditation and mysticism, it does make sense, because later on I realized that these were human beings that had been enough acquainted with the games of physical realness. So it's as if we have dwelled in physical reality for such a long time that after some point we're wondering if our nature is non-physical and it's natural. It's just like how the world moves, you know. Let me tell you guys one more thing. The power of silence. The power of silence tames your animal instincts. The power of stillness. I'm not joking, guys. Anybody who is comfortable with stillness, with silence, and emptiness, once you are truly experientially comfortable with that possibility and probability in existence, then you activate. Then you don't fear life. So it's kind of like, what is a good kind of life to live? We can say it's a life where there isn't fear and ignorance. There isn't an ignorance because of the fear. So what does that mean? That means if you want to live, like, I'll give you an example. It's like there's a kettle boiling on the stove, and the person, imagine, is just, mopping the floor, you know. And as they're mopping the floor, it's kind of like this is an incredible example, actually. Like, imagine a kettle is boiling and the person is trying to mop the floor, and they think efficiency means to mop the floor well, only for them to realize efficiency meant be aware of the environment. And the only way you can, in the masterful observance of a movement, it comes from stillness. Guys, I'm not joking. This is the most important thing. It's as if, like, we go handle the kettle, then we start mopping the floor. That's the thing. That's the thing. It's kind of like the person thinking, all right, every day happens once, so pretty much everything it's a once attempt at. Now, before I attempt it, I could look at the phenomena and in my inner realms attempt it a couple times, then in my outer realms. And that's what I often do when I'm in a situation that suddenly the information comes at a speed where I don't have enough time to process. I take a step back internally, you know? It's kind of similar to when someone says something to you that you don't understand. You're like, oh, okay, hold on. And then you ask them to say it again, and then your listening is at a different pace, you know? Out of curiosity, can people hear the birds? Guys, I can hear the birds. I can hear them speak. Joking. I think one of the most incredible moments in television that is underestimated by many people is that episode from Rick and Morty where Morty hears the squirrels talking. I felt that was genius. I feel that scene needs to go into the Hall of Fame of television. There's a poet from Rumi. He says, I died as a mineral and I became a plant. I died as a plant and I rose to animal. I died as an animal and I was man. Why should I fear death? When was I less by dying? I shall die once more to soar with angels blessed. But even from angelhood I must pass on to that which no mind has ever conceived. The arrow of time is not forward, it is towards the inconceivable. Time is the view from the bottom of the mountain. The view from the top of the mountain is timeless. And it's as if individual life prepares for the collective life to begin. And so what does that mean? That means you have an opportunity in this human life to experience individual consciousness, and this shouldn't be taken for granted. You know? That your attention is worthy of your attention. Honestly, everything that I'm sharing in these talks, they have kind of been how my experiences of this life have changed. Because you cannot speak beyond the dualistic dimension, and it's very hard, and the only way you can is through paradoxical poetry. And it's a very complex algorithm, because the human mind is polar. What does that mean? That means you have never seen something good without a reference for what is bad. You have never seen something bad without a reference for what good is. So that means you have never seen something unknown without something known, and something known without the unknown. Both angles coexist. I mean, think about it. Right now, we are a known being. We're aware the unknown is out there. Okay? So imagine when the person transitions, ejects out of this physical plane of existence, what happens is that it's as if the unknown, you're the unknowns, but the unknown will be aware of the known. So that means in this life, we should prepare for how we are existing now, and also for the reverse. And this is why I feel the whole stillness, silence thing works. It's a reverse comprehension. It literally means that, and just like Rumi says, a bird needs two wings to fly, the mind needs chaos in order to exist. Without chaos and order and a free will to the weather of the world, the character has no such thing as an adventure. I want to go into a quote tunnel, guys, of the word efficiency. And a quote tunnel is a segment of these shows that I kind of just read a bunch of quotes relevant to either a theme or a person in history. Today it's going to be on the word efficiency, so I'm going to give you, I'm going to share with you how other people have seen this concept. Stephen Covey. Okay, just a second, actually. All right, never mind. Stephen Covey. Covey, I don't know. Management is efficiency in climbing the ladder of success. Leadership determines whether the ladder is leaning against the right wall. Wow. So management is efficiency in climbing the ladder of success. Leadership determines whether the ladder is leaning against the right wall. So that's the thing. The leader sees the ladder leaning against the right wall. That means the battlefield has been identified, the right battlefield, and the manager completes the battle. You know, the manager is like a general, and the king is like the leader in a battle, you know. Anyways, John F. Kennedy, Washington is a city of southern efficiency and northern charm. So I haven't lived in America, so I can't really comment. Southern efficiency and northern charm. You know, nations that go through civil war are, I think they mature quicker. Bill Gates says the first rule of any technology used in a business is that automation applied to an efficient operation will magnify the efficiency. The second is that automation applied to an inefficient operation will magnify the inefficiency. Yeah. Because it's very obvious why Bill Gates says this. Because let's start with the second part. He says the second is the automation applied to an inefficient operation will magnify the inefficiency. You know why? Because if you put an automated operation for something that's inefficiently happening, the automated operation may not identify the problem. You know, may not be able to, doesn't have a mind to compare contexts. You know. The first part, of course, it's very direct. When robots do the work, you know, there's more attention towards the battle plans of the company. Really. Elon Musk says, yes, well, I think anyone who likes fast cars will love the Tesla. And it has fantastic handling, by the way. I mean, this car will crush a Porsche on the track, just crush it. So if you like fast cars, you'll love this car. And then, oh, by the way, it happens to be electric and it's twice the efficiency of a Prius. You know, I'm sold. It's just, there's another issue with getting the Tesla. Benjamin Disraeli says there can be economy only when there's efficiency. Aldous Huxley says the worst enemy of life, freedom, and the common decencies is total anarchy. Their second worst, the worst enemy of life, freedom, and the common decencies is total anarchy. Their second worst enemy is total efficiency. Why does he say that? Does he mean with total efficiency corruption is ultimate deception? I don't know. Guys, I was expecting better quotes here. Okay, here, I'll just read it from Tim Ferriss. Efficiency is doing things right. Effectiveness is doing the right things. Efficiency is doing things right. Effectiveness is doing the right things. Okay, that's clever. I like that statement. Austin Freeman says simplicity is the soul of efficiency. Robert Cray says efficiency and focus are the keys to success. Peter F. Drucker says efficiency is doing better what is already being done. Stephen Covey says you think effectiveness with people and efficiency with things. Stephen Chu says, as the saying goes, the Stone Age did not end because we ran out of stones. We transitioned to better solutions. The same opportunity lies before us with energy efficiency and clean energy. Okay, nice. That's a great quote. The Stone Age didn't end because we ran out of stones. We found better methods. Yeah, that's the thing. And I think in regards to the inner constitution of the human being, it's like we gotta not just seek better methods. I think interact with the life of the world in a better way. Ayn Rand says, "Run for your life from any man who tells you that money is evil. That sentence is the leper's bell of an approaching looter." Yeah, guys, I don't know like why money was evil. I mean, anything can be used. Like you can say a knife is evil, but you can use a knife as Chef Ramsay does it to cook food, or as a thug in the street uses it, right? So it's as if like the phenomena, the object has no nature. The object is just an object. It's your mind that brings the context to the object. Herbert in Kasson says the men who succeed are the efficient few. They are the few who have the ambition and willpower to develop themselves. Let me tell you, if the few are succeeding, the system is inefficient. Robert Fulgham says speed and efficiency do not always increase the quality of life. That's true. Sometimes you try to rush through certain situations and you miss past certain precious things. Stephen Wright says the speed of time is 1 second per second. There's something so magnificently silly about this quote. Okay, guys, I guess I'll end off with this quote here from Raj Kumar that says, work efficiency and effectiveness of an individual is determined by psychological balance of the individual. That means pretty much your inner life and your outer life, the objective realm and the subjective realm, are like wings of a bird. Okay? So if one of the wings is flying faster than the other, the bird can't fly properly. It's only when the two wings at the same time symmetrically work. So it's like you attain a sort of objective rhythm and harmony, and you try to see the same symmetrical of this behind behind your eyes in your subjective realm. So there is a way where the objective realms and subjective realms become symmetrical, and usually when that happens, the symmetry of the body becomes clear. So what does that mean? That means like a clear mirror where there is a pure. Imagine the mirror is like smudged, so that smudged mirror is the veil that's separating your inner realm and your outer realm. So when you get rid of the smudge in the mirror, it becomes a pure reflection. So it becomes as if the light of your inner realms are like a mirror, your outer realms are a mirror, and when you place them in front of each other, they provide a sort of hollow, infinite projection of language. That means the child of the mind and the child of the body is neither of the mind and neither of the body. Paul Mayer, guys, I'm going to share this quote too. He says, productivity is never an accident, it's the result of a commitment to excellence, intelligent planning, and focused effort. Tony Robbins says the path to success is to take massive, determined action. And you know what that means? It means invest in your experience when it's happening. So William Thurman says the effectiveness of efficiency is masked by the technology you're dealing with. I don't think efficiency is masked by the technology. The user of technology suggests how efficient the technology could be. You know? That means, imagine you're holding a pen, okay, and you're like, why isn't this pen writing? You know? And then you realize you were writing in the dark and you turn on the thing and you see you were holding the pen upside down, right? So efficiency can, in a simplistic way, mean a different angle than inefficiency. So it's like two ways. Either you take the idea towards the void and you see something beyond it that way, or you take the idea beyond duality towards the infinite and you see something that way. So anyways, guys, that's for the end of the talk. Thanks for listening. I'm going to open it up to Q&A, but normally I think people don't have questions because I'm such an excellent speaker. The world we live in, and the world that lives with us, within us, with and within us, within with us. All right, guys, it's a small crowd. It's like five people listening. Does anybody need any sort of second opinion on something, or I'm just curious to see what questions roam the inner. Okay, so guys, one thing to say before I end off. Um, I had an experience by a grocery store. I was explaining something I have a twin brother. I was explaining something to him in the middle, and I was speaking very fast. And then this random person comes and asks me, who I'm the one speaking to my brother. And while I'm explaining something very, like, I'm excited, I'm explaining something to my brother, this person comes and says, what is success?" And I remember midway explaining to my brother, I just paused, looked at him because I know I was explaining something intense to my brother. I was like, I had to give two answers. And so I tell the guy, efficient vision. Just two words. Efficient vision. And then I continue talking to my brother. Then after I finish the picture I was painting for him, what I was trying to say to him, then I talked to the guy and whatnot, you know. But it was very strange. And I always wondered why I said efficient vision. And I came to realize really that's it. It's just you're a vision here, and efficiency is an option of every moment. That means you can see yourself doing something in a moment and kind of fathom both in time and in the future. Just like you could think someone right in the world is doing what you're attempting to do in a much better way than you. And that most people that they don't like that, but it's gonna inspire you after a while when you see how much skill is planted on this earth. So I would say seek your efficient vision, that, and then efficiency will run towards you. Much blessings and